The house smelled like baby powder and chaos. Screams bounced off the walls like ricocheting bullets. I balanced a crying toddler on one hip, a warm bottle in my other hand, and the crushing weight of my entire family on my shoulders. My name's Alex. I'm 16. And for as long as I can remember, I've been the parent in this house. If you've ever felt trapped in a situation you didn't choose, or had to grow up way too fast, stick around. This is the story of how I finally walked away from my family, not because I didn't love them, but because it was the only way to save them. Hit like, subscribe, and let's dive in. The house smelled like baby powder, sour milk, and chaos. Screaming echoed down the hallway like an alarm I could never shut off. A toddler was clinging to my hip, snot running down her face, while I fumbled with a warm bottle in my other hand. My shoulders ached, but not from holding the baby, from the crushing weight of my entire family resting on me. My name's Alex, I'm 16 years old, and I've been raising my siblings for as long as I can remember. Not because I wanted to, but because someone had to. Our home was a battlefield disguised as a house. The carpet was a minefield of toys, the kitchen smelled like dirty dishes, and the crying never stopped. Sometimes it was the baby, sometimes it was one of my younger brothers, and sometimes it was me. Mom, Diana, wasn't evil. She wasn't abusive in the traditional sense. She was just absent. She worked a lot, disappeared a lot, and when she was home, she was tired, overwhelmed, and checked out. By the time she was 35, she already had 7 kids, and now she was pregnant again. That's right. 8 kids. 8 mouths to feed. 8 lives to manage. And she was bringing yet another baby into this circus. I had been playing the role of parent since I was 12. I woke up early to get my siblings dressed. I made lunches. I walked them to school. I held the babies at night when they cried so she could sleep. While other kids my age went to football games or parties, I was Googling how to soothe colic and stretching cans of beans into dinner for 7. There were nights I would lock myself in the bathroom, sit on the floor with my knees to my chest, and sob silently, terrified someone would hear me. I'd cry until I couldn't breathe, wipe my face, and walk back into the chaos like nothing happened. But then came the night that broke me. I was standing over the stove, stirring mac and cheese, the cheapest, fastest dinner I could throw together, when Mom walked in. She looked tired but strangely calm, cigarette dangling between her fingers. "Alex," she said casually, like she was announcing what was on TV, "I'm pregnant again." I froze, spoon in mid-air. The smell of smoke stung my eyes, but it wasn't the cigarette, it was the panic rising in my chest. More diapers. More bottles. More crying. More sleepless nights. More responsibility that wasn't mine. "That's great, Mom," I said, forcing a smile. But inside, something cracked that night. I tucked my baby sister Emma into bed, kissing her soft forehead. I whispered words that felt like a promise and a threat all at once. "I love you, Emma. One day, I'm going to get us out of here. I swear it." I didn't know how or when. But deep down, I knew this was the moment my life would change forever. 2 weeks passed after Mom's announcement, but the words echoed in my head like a drumbeat I couldn't escape: "I'm pregnant again." I kept moving through the motions, packing school lunches, braiding Emma's hair, calming tantrums, but inside, I was hollow. 16 years old and already a parent. I wasn't living, I was surviving. That night, while Mom was out running errands, I sat at the kitchen table long after the kids went to bed. A single light bulb flickered above me as I stared at my notebook. But I wasn't doing homework. I was making a plan. I scribbled down what I'd need to leave. Clothes. Phone charger. Toothbrush. Money, if I could find some. I had about $20 saved from mowing a neighbor's lawn last summer. It wasn't much, but it was something. The guilt clawed at me as I wrote. How could I leave them? Emma was only 3. My brothers still needed someone to help with homework, to tuck them in. Who would take care of them if not me? But another voice inside me was louder: "If you stay, you'll never escape." You'll never have a future. For days, I moved like a ghost, hiding cash whenever I found it, quietly folding clothes into a duffel bag when no one was looking. I kissed Emma's forehead every night, memorizing her laugh, the way she reached for me in her sleep. Finally, the morning came. The sun was barely rising when I stood in the hallway, duffel bag slung over my shoulder, sneakers tied tight. I glanced into the kids' room one last time. They were all asleep, their tiny faces soft and innocent, completely unaware that their world was about to shift. Emma stirred in her bed, so I tiptoed in and knelt beside her. Her little hand curled around my finger, and tears stung my eyes. "I love you, Emma," I whispered. "I'll come back for you, I promise." My voice cracked. She was too young to understand, but I needed to say it out loud. I pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, stood up, and walked out the front door. The air outside was cool, and the rising sun painted the sky in shades of pink and orange. For the first time in years, I felt free. Every step away from that house made my heart pound harder. My legs shook, but I didn't look back. Not once. I didn't have a plan beyond this moment. I just knew I couldn't stay. I couldn't keep drowning in chaos, in diapers, in endless crying. I had to leave. That night, I crashed on a friend's couch. The blanket smelled like laundry detergent, and for once, there wasn't a single sound. No crying. No yelling. I laid there, staring at the ceiling, and whispered to myself, "This is it. My life starts now." But freedom, I would soon learn, wasn't so simple. Because 3 days later, someone came knocking. 3 days. That's all I got. 3 days of quiet nights and mornings where I didn't have to wake up early to make breakfast for 6 kids. 3 days of breathing without feeling like I was being crushed under the weight of responsibility. Then came the knock. I was curled up on my friend's couch, scrolling through my phone when the sound echoed through the apartment. 3 sharp knocks. I froze, heart pounding. "Alex Carter," a deep voice called from the other side. My friend gave me a nervous glance. "You expecting someone?" I shook my head, my throat dry. She opened the door, and 2 uniformed officers stood there, their presence filling the doorway. One was tall with kind eyes, the other had a clipboard tucked under his arm. "Are you Alex Carter?" the tall one repeated. My heart thudded. "Why, yeah, that's me." The officer glanced at his notes, then back at me. "We need to talk about your family." My stomach sank. They stepped inside, their heavy boots clunking against the hardwood floor. I sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped tightly together. The taller officer crouched slightly, his voice calm but firm. "We got a welfare call about your siblings. Neighbors reported screaming and concerning conditions. We did a welfare check earlier today." My breath caught in my throat. "Your siblings are okay," the other officer said quickly. "But the house was not safe. The baby was sick. No one could find your mom." I bit my lip hard, tears stinging my eyes. The guilt hit me like a wave crashing over my head. I couldn't do it anymore, I whispered, my voice cracking. "I've been raising them for years. Mom's never home. There's never enough food. The word spilled out uncontrollably. I told them everything, the nights I stayed up feeding the baby, the times I had to stretch 1 loaf of bread into dinner for 7, how Mom treated me like the maid instead of her son. They didn't interrupt. The tall officer just nodded slowly, scribbling notes as I talked. His eyes softened with every detail I shared. "Alex," he said gently, "you're just a kid. You shouldn't have to live like this." Those words shattered me. Nobody had ever said that to me before. I felt like I was floating outside my body as they explained the next steps. Social services had already stepped in. The kids were being placed in temporary care. They wanted to get me somewhere safe, too. Safe. The word felt foreign. That night, I was placed in a foster home. The woman who opened the door smiled warmly and ushered me inside. there was a bed made up for me, with clean sheets and a pillow that smelled like lavender. For the first time in years, I didn't have to take care of anyone. I didn't have to check the fridge, listen for crying, or keep one ear open for Mom stumbling in late. But that night, staring up at the unfamiliar ceiling, I didn't feel relieved. I felt broken. And even worse? I couldn't stop thinking about Emma. Days turned into weeks, and weeks blurred into months. I was safe now. No screaming babies, no empty fridge, no exhaustion so deep I couldn't remember what day it was. My foster mom, Linda, was kind. She made hot meals every night and gently reminded me to do my homework, like an actual parent. But even in safety, my mind wouldn't quiet down. Guilt hung over me like a storm cloud. Every night, I imagined Emma's tiny face, her soft curls sticking to her cheeks as she cried for me. I'd promised I'd come back. I'd promised therapy became a lifeline. My counselor helped me untangle the mess of emotions I'd buried for years, the anger at Mom for dumping her responsibilities on me, the fear of never seeing my siblings again, and the guilt that gnawed at me every time I thought about the day I walked out. But just as I started to feel like maybe I could breathe, the phone rang. Linda handed me the cordless phone, her face serious. "It's the hospital," she said softly. My heart stopped. "Alex," a nurse's voice said through the receiver. "Your mother's been admitted. Complications with the pregnancy." I didn't even think. Against Linda's hesitant warnings, I grabbed my jacket and demanded to see her. When I walked into that sterile hospital room, I almost didn't recognize her. Mom looked small, pale, and fragile against the stiff white sheets. There were tubes in her arms, and her eyes fluttered open when she heard me step closer. "Alex," her voice cracked, weak but full of something I'd never heard before, regret. I froze at the edge of her bed, unsure if I wanted to cry, yell, or walk out. I'm sorry," she whispered, tears filling her tired eyes. "I never meant for it to be like this." My breath hitched. She'd never apologized before. Not once. I sank into the chair beside her and, for the first time, we talked. Not as mother and son. Not as the overwhelmed parent and the neglected kid. Just two broken people. She told me about her own childhood, how she'd been abandoned by her parents as a teenager, left to raise herself. She admitted that every relationship she'd ever had was a desperate search for love, and every child was an attempt to fill a void she didn't know how to heal. It didn't excuse the years of neglect. It didn't erase the pain I'd endured. But for the first time I saw her not as the villain of my story, but as someone who was just as lost as I'd been. The conversation left me shaken. I didn't forgive her completely, but something shifted inside me. Then came the news: the baby had been delivered early. He was tiny, weak, and fighting for his life in the NICU. Standing at the nursery window, I pressed my palm against the glass, watching his chest rise and fall under the glow of machines. He looked so fragile, yet so determined. I whispered, "I'll make sure you grow up safe. I promise." And in that moment, I knew I wasn't just walking away from my family. I was breaking a cycle. The weeks after my baby brother's birth were a blur of emotions I couldn't quite name. Fear. Hope. Anger. Love. I visited him every chance I got, standing at that nursery window, praying to a God I wasn't even sure I believed in. He was so tiny, so fragile, but every time I saw his chest rise and fall, I felt this spark inside me, like maybe, just maybe, things could change. Mom surprised me. For the first time in my life, she wanted help. She enrolled in rehab and started parenting classes. It wasn't a miracle transformation, but it was a start. Social services stepped in, and for the first time, my siblings were safe. Emma went to live with a kind family friend. My brothers were placed with loving foster families. And me? I had my own room in Linda's house. My own space. My own life. The first night I slept in that bed, with clean sheets and no crying in the background, I broke down. Tears streamed down my face, and I realized I wasn't crying because I missed the chaos. I was crying because, for the first time ever, I felt safe and yet, I couldn't let go of them. Every week, I visited my siblings. I'd read Emma her favorite bedtime story over FaceTime and see her little face light up when she saw me. I'd hold my baby brother in the hospital, feeling his tiny heartbeat against my chest. I'd help my older brothers with their homework, cheering when they showed me their good grades. I wasn't their full-time caretaker anymore, but I was still their protector. I always would be. Meanwhile, I started focusing on my own future. I actually had a future now. I worked a part-time job, applied for college, and started therapy. I learned that what happened to me wasn't my fault. I wasn't just the built-in babysitter anymore. I was Alex. A kid who deserved to dream. The revenge wasn't loud or flashy. It wasn't about screaming matches or pointing fingers. My revenge was quiet but powerful. I refused to let my childhood define me. I broke free from the cycle of neglect and chaos that swallowed generations before me. And in doing that, I gave my siblings a better chance, too. Now, when I visit Mom, she's different. She's tired, yes, but she's trying. She's learning. She's healing. She knows she messed up, and she's doing the work to make things right. I still don't fully forgive her, but I'm proud of her for trying. When I look at my baby brother sleeping peacefully, I whisper the same promise I made the day he was born. You'll grow up safe. You'll grow up loved. Family isn't perfect. It's messy and painful and complicated. But I will always fight for them, no matter what. And sometimes, walking away isn't abandoning your family. It's saving them.